Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Breaking the Stigma podcast. Of course, we got Mr. Brian Hurd right there with Cardinal Financial, and myself, César Mascorro with MH Sales Mastery. But today we got a special guest with us. Today we have Mr. Rafael Cisneros from Cowtown Home Center out in, you guys are in Fort Worth. Is that where it's at,
Yes,
Rafael?
sir. Just northwest Fort Worth, pretty close to Azle.
Fort Worth, Texas. And so today, folks, what it's about is, over the past episodes, we've been talking about finance, we've been talking about lending, we've been talking about manufacturers, and ultimately the whole idea behind this podcast is just what the name of it is, which is breaking the stigma. And today we want to talk to Rafael because Rafael has some insight from two different perspectives, and we're going to get into that as we go along into it. But really, right now, Rafael serves as owner of Cowtown Home Center, a retail location in Fort Worth, Texas. And so we want to dive into the retail aspect of the industry and what's been going on, where we see it going, and obviously how can we move the industry forward. So, Rafael, thank you very much for being with us, man. We appreciate your time. We know it's busy.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, we know it's busy doing what you do. So,
And
you
y'all
know,
have a little
what's going
history,
on?
correct?
What's
A little
that?
bit.
Y'all have a little history.
Yeah, we do. We have a little bit of history. I met Rafael when he was a factory rep for Clayton Factory Southern Energy back in the day, man. That was probably, when did you transition to sales?
I left Clayton in 2019, and I had a little stint where I wasn't in the industry for about a year, and then
Uh-huh.
I wrote myself back into it.
Couldn't escape.
They
Couldn't
pulled you back
escape.
in,
Yeah, missed
right?
it too much.
But you became our factory rep at my old location. What,
Yep.
like you became factory rep was 14, 15?
2011,
Oh, was
2012,
it
something
that
like
way?
that's when I
Okay.
started. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Early 2010s.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've known Rafael since then. Great guy. And, let's start there, man. Okay. What was it like on the factory side? What is the idea from the factory side as far as who are we serving as an overall industry, and what is the thought process behind factories servicing retailers and communities?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was a rep for Clayton, my goal was always to improve how many houses a retailer had in their inventory, right? The more houses you have in mind, the more you're likely to sell. At the end of the day, that was my job, is to get more of my home sold as opposed to anybody else. But going into it, you kind of know, hey, your product only fits a certain criteria, right? I like to think of it, being your entry level, your mid level, and your high end houses. And we kind of fit that real good middle of the road spot. Had a little bit of both ends, but really fit that spot. What we wanted to do is, hey, this is why our product is better than competitor X, and this is what we do better. And at the same time, informing and educating the home consultants there at all the sales centers on, hey, this is how you sell our house compared to brand X, and these are the things that we do compared to this other brand, or hey, this is what we're really good at, and you should highlight this whenever you're showing customers houses, because this might be a value to them that they can't get somewhere else. So that would really be the main focus of what we did. But then I'd also go work Saturdays at different retail lots, and I'd go hang out with the sales staff, and we would talk about, hey, got a customer in and this is what they're looking for. This is their budget. Uh, I'd go out there, I'd go sell another house from another factory, just because that's serving the customer. And at the end of the day, that dealer is my customer. And as long as they're being profitable and they're doing well, that means I'm going to do well. And it's kind of a back and forth relationship, right? Hey, I'm here to be kind of a consultant to you. Prefer you sell my houses, but we're friends at the end of the day, and I'm going to make sure you do well as well.
So I
Yeah.
like that you've got experience, from the factory side, selling directly to retailers and dealers. Now you have your own store selling
Yeah.
directly to the end buyer. what are the biggest challenges in getting the word out? What were the biggest challenges in selling manufactured homes?
So selling from the factory side or from the retail side?
Either one, whichever one you want to dig into first.
Yeah. So from the factory side, you have a real narrow audience that you can sell
Yep.
to, right? And then once you have your one or two retailers in the market, hey, you're kind of done selling that market. Now you have
Yeah.
more of an internal customer where you're trying to sell the salespeople and get them sold on your product, get them to buy into your product as opposed to buying into somebody else. And hey, this customer is kind of right on the bottom edge of your product. It'd be
Yeah.
super easier to sell them our entry level product as opposed to yours, but they're so bought into your product and who you are and what you do for them that they're going to do everything they can to try to bump them up right to
Yep.
to your house. Um, and then right having a market where nobody represents your product out there, trying to go shake hands with everybody and trying to figure out how you could be a fit to them because not always would you be a good fit for that retailer. Hey, let's see
Yeah.
what you got in
Yeah.
inventory. What are the price points that you're hitting? Are you maybe missing this product or are you missing this customer out in your market because you're not carrying something comparable to me? But if you're carrying something that is comparable, it wouldn't make sense for us to double up because nobody's going to win at that point. Hey, do what you do good at, and we'll kind of move on.
So one of the things, and you set that up beautifully. I like it when people do that. It makes it easier for Cesar and I. You mentioned having, not having a representative for you out in the marketplace.
Mhm.
One of the things that we've been really wanting to dig into is how do we change that? And specifically, how do we involve the realtor community? Traditionally, the two just don't mesh,
Right.
and really kind of want you to dig in why. Let's just start with why. Why don't dealers, retailers, even factories work directly or strive to work directly with the realtor community?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of answers to that question. Top of mind comes some of my dealings in the past with realtors is, hey, we get a customer who needs to put a land home package together. I
Mhm.
can provide the house for you. Let me get you in touch with somebody in the community who is an expert in finding land for you, and they're good with knowing in what areas you want to be in, who's
Yeah.
going to allow manufactured home. So we get them in touch with this realtor. But then we've had it in the past where the realtor gets in this customer's ear and is like, hey, do you really want to buy a new one? Let me show you some that are already out in the field because it's in their best interest,
Yeah.
right? To sell them something that's existing.
Quicker sell. Yeah. Yeah.
It's better for their pocket, right, than it is to us. So I'm sure other retailers have had that bad experience of dealing with realtors. But then the other thing is, I think there's an educational component to it. Not a lot of retailers understand what we do and what we provide. And I'm sure it goes back to having that bad stigma of, a trailer house and them not wanting to put their clients into it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's definitely, I mean, the theme is the stigma, and I think there is obviously that stigma. People turn their nose up at it, it's not worth their time, whatever the case is. But I think a lot of that just boils down to education, and I've certainly learned a lot over the last 5 years as I've kind of gone down that journey towards, really being passionate about offsite construction. Cesar has been a great teacher and mentor to me in this particular space. But I think that's something that, and I've always been a site built guy up until about 5 years ago. So we see it in that space just as much, maybe not quite as much, but you have realtors that maybe they don't quite understand the builder, their process, and vice versa. The builders would go, hey, you know what? Is the realtor really bringing clients to us? All that kind of stuff. And it's simple things like how do we pay commissions to how do we want the realtor to interact with us? I mean, it's a two-way street. And I think that that's something that we really want to. This is part of the reason why we're having this discussion is how can we help promote conversations with the realtor community? That way, if you mentioned having a representative out in the field, well, I think better than 90% of all real estate transactions in the United States are represented by a realtor.
Mhm.
that's a huge part of the population that we really need to kind of get on our side as allies. But it's a two-way conversation. So that's really kind of why we want, your thoughts and, what do you think retailers and dealers can do to increase those conversations or to get realtors involved?
Yeah, I think definitely partnering up with the local brokerages in your community and having a day where, hey, let me come into your brokerage when all of the
Love it.
agents come in, right? They have training weekly, or they'll have a lender who comes in and talks about a new product, or a home builder and talks about their new homes. And let's carve out some time to go schedule some time to go educate these agents and talk a little bit about our
Love
product,
it.
how it fits, or invite them out to our sales center. Let me show you
Yes.
what these houses really look like and how they can fit some of your customers that you're after.
Yeah,
Love it.
I would have to agree with that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even thinking back to my time in retail, which I'm just a couple of years removed from it, but I still deal with it a lot with a lot of our clients that are retailers. Um, you mentioned it, Rafael, and Brian, you said it as well, right? Is it's educating because look, when times were great, all these realtors, right? The majority of them wouldn't even give you the time of day. Let's be real, right? But now that things are tougher, you actually have to be able to sell, and people are limited by income and not being able to qualify with rates being what they are. We are more, when I say we, you, right? Cowtown Home Center, anybody in retail or in the community space, you're more of an option for their buyers, the realtors buyers. Because like
Mhm.
I run across them all the time. I go to different events in the communities and things of that nature. And realtors always have their booth set up, right? They're all out there trying to get the word. And so when I mentioned to them, I talk to them all the time, like, hey, look, you should consider this as an option with your local manufactured home retail centers or communities because you have a ton of clients that only qualify for like 250, $300,000 maybe, but you don't have a product for them. They do, and if you partner with them, you can help them because Rafael, I don't know if you've run across the same uh, consensus on this, if you will. But most people aren't living, they're not buying homes for generations now. They're buying homes and 5 years, 8 years from now, they're buying something else, right? Just like cars. And
Yep.
so this realtor has the benefit of you helping them right now with this, even if it's through a referral program that you may set up for them. Or maybe you do get them to do the land and they get the commission on that, but they're picking up a little spiff on the house. But in 5 years from now, they got a buyer right there that could come back to them to buy that next home.
Yeah, that's a great way to pitch it is, hey, let's build that referral business for them for in the future.
Yeah,
Or a question, right? Do you build that 3% into your sales price? Right. I worked for that 1 year when I was out of the industry. I worked for a home builder, and we would build
Ah,
level
yeah.
houses, and we would get
Yeah.
into that, sub $150,000 houses in the same markets that we're putting manufactured homes in today. And they would go buy infill lots and build a little 1,000 square foot house and just try to get into that bottom of the market for that person who really needs that price point house. And when
Mhm.
we would price out our houses, we would build that 3% into the
Mhm.
sales price, knowing that, hey, we were going to have to pay some type of
Yeah,
uh, fee to an agent.
sure. Are you doing spec homes right now?
We don't.
Okay. And because when you mentioned that, right? I mean, obviously that's somewhere where you could test it out with. I
Yeah.
think there's some retailers that do. They'll put a
Mhm.
spec home and you price it up because at that point it's land home. You have the ability based on appraisals to probably add that 3%
Yeah.
in there, because it is harder to do when it's home only.
It's
We
very
know
hard.
that.
It's very
And
hard,
I
but
think
the
that's going to
limit.
be, yeah, I think that's going to be definitely a little bit more challenging. But I really like, Raphael, that you spent that little bit of time in the site built space because I'd love to see more of the manufactured home industry put that 3% in there. Now, granted, you got to have rules, and just like every home builder does, I mean, there has to be these rules of engagement. what constitutes being able to pay a realtor that 3% commission? And that doesn't mean the client walks into, your store, you say, hey, go get a realtor to find a piece of land, and then all of a sudden you magically get 3% on the home. That obviously doesn't make sense. But if the realtor is the procuring cause of that buyer walking in your store, walks that client, and my suggestion, just like like we do with all of our home builders, walk your client into that sales office from the beginning, not later on, not going back and putting your name down and signing it after the fact. Walk that client in. That should be, in my opinion, now we don't always have to agree, that should be, grounds for being the procuring cause, and should include the 3% on that particular, and it doesn't really have to be 3%, but should be for a realtor. Because look, a realtor wants to own, or wants to make a fair compensation, and until it's comparable to the rest of the world, I think that's where it's going to be harder to tell a realtor, hey, use this product. It's just as viable as site built or resale, but we're not going to pay you as much. That can't happen. It just can't. Now, education's really important, and I love the idea, absolutely love the idea of going to the realtor's office, the sales meeting, going, look, this is not just the niche product. This is, it's not your grandmother's mobile home, that hasn't been called since the late 70s. These are homes first and foremost. It's attainable, kind of going back to what Cesar was saying. These are homes that you may not be able to find in the marketplace. This is a very viable, it constitutes what, 10, 11% of the marketplace now, but that's going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. So yeah, and I think that's something that we can do even as lenders, because I think part of the stigma is that how you finance manufactured homes isn't really understood outside of, kind of the industry itself. So I think we all need to work as a community, educate realtors, because we want those advocates out in the marketplace representing you, representing and all of us. So love that idea. That's something that we really, really need to start doing.
Hey, so let me ask you, Rafael, because we're talking about educating the realtors, right? What about our own people? What about the education level of our own sales team,
Yeah.
sales staff on how to explain this, not just to realtors, but even
Yeah.
the new buyers coming in. I don't know. Do you guys, are you still just seeing the traditional manufactured home buyer coming in, or are you getting more people coming in to find out, is this an option for us? We've never been in one, never seen one, but man, with prices where they're at, we're looking at possibly doing this. Are you getting more of that buyer coming in?
Yeah, definitely. We get them all the time. Actually, this Saturday we were overrun with customers. Super busy Saturday. I ended up taking them up, walking them around, and that was their story. Hey, we live in a 3,500 square foot in the middle of the Metroplex. We just bought 10 acres out in the country. We're considering either going this route or maybe building something, shopped online, and we really want to look at these models. This is what we're looking for. But we're
Right.
getting a lot of those people who come in and, hey, what does this stuff look like? They're in that exploratory phase, right? They're wanting to find out, what do these look like in person? How are they going to last? How are they constructed? And that's really where we come in and we help educate that buyer. And I think we're a little bit different than a lot of our competitors, where we're kind of a no pressure, right, team.
Yeah.
Let me show you what you're looking for. Let me educate you on the information that you're looking for. Hey, this fits. Hey, let's go ahead and move forward. But if it doesn't, you don't like it, our price point doesn't mean what you need. Hey, we'll shake hands. Reach out to us if you get with somebody else and you still have questions. Be more than happy to help you and be an asset to you.
So what is
So
that?
sorry, I got a question for you, and
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but
Oh, you're fine.
he brings up a really interesting point, and you guys are tenured pros in this space. I've only really focused on it for a few years. So he mentions that Raphael mentioned, that this low pressure being a little bit different. Are you finding that a lot of, because you work with dealerships all across the country, are you
Mhm.
finding that majority of them are high pressure?
I would say it's probably a 60-70 split, right?
Because that's
Where
the impression I have, but I don't know if that's my own stigmas that I continually have to work on.
from
So
what
yeah,
I've seen whenever I was a rep and I'd go visit lots, that was really all the training they had up to that point was
yeah,
not really the used car salesman, but more of a high pressure, like the idea was if you don't buy from me today, there's so many competitors down the street that you're going to go see that if you don't buy from me, you're going to go buy from somewhere else because you're obviously a buyer. I had an old guy tell me back in the 90s, when you had a customer come in, they'd give you a bucket of ice cream. So it wouldn't melt in your car. You'd have to go home and you didn't have a chance to go shop anymore, right? You know, little dumb trick.
that's the first time I've ever heard of that one, Raphael.
There
So
was
I
all
mean,
these little schemes, right?
I mean, and I've heard, throw the keys on the roof and tell car keys on the roof, tell you sign, and look, I mean, again, there's a lot of ignorance on my side on how these things are sold. Why is that? I mean, there's always part of that in the site built world as well, because it's a very emotional buying process. But why is that? Why is particularly in the man-home place?
I think just the training that was available up until that point and kind of where
Okay.
the industry came from, right? From, the 60s and the 70s. And I guess back in the day, they really were sold like vehicles and used cars, and
Yeah.
that mentality's
Yeah.
kind of progressed. And I think that's kind of what Caesar's trying to change people's perception
Yes.
and how to talk to that end consumer in a different way. Because if you go, see a DR Horton house, that sales consultant isn't going to beat you down until you buy a house from him. He's going to allow you to look and answer all the questions, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
as bad. Not as bad.
Well,
So
but
Solomon, what's your
buyers are
story?
different, Brian.
Yeah.
Buyers are
Yeah.
different now. Even the traditional manufactured home buyer is different,
Yeah.
right? But what we've got to understand I always talk about it this way, right? In the last 5 years, things have changed so much in the way people buy homes,
Yeah.
because COVID affected everything, right? It changed the game. People are more isolated now, so because they're more isolated, they spend more time researching before they even decide to go look
Mhm.
at something. So they're a lot more educated, and so that's why today those sales consultants that on the manufactured home side are selling at a high click. It's those guys are not the traditional high pressured sales guy that it has to be today. We got to move today. They're more of the educators, but they're educating before the buyer comes to them. You look online at somebody that does high volume, and for the most part, those guys they've got a ton of content that's out there on what the homes are, how the financing works, what the difference is in the construction and things like they're educating buyers so that by the time they come to them, they're already bought in, whether they've bought a home before, a manufactured home, or been in one before or not. So that's where the difference is now. Because look, I was part of that. It's today. It's today. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I still talk to everybody that works with us. Like you got to have a sense of urgency because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there is still a stigma, and it may not be that buyer who feels that way, but I can guarantee you he's got an uncle, a parent,
Yeah.
or
It's
somebody
a
who
really
will
good point.
get in their ear
It's a
and
really good
try
point.
and get them to say, "Why are you buying one of those?"
It's a really good point.
What do
Yeah.
you think,
Yeah.
Rafael?
No, definitely. I wholeheartedly agree with the buyers being more educated because they come in here knowing exactly what they want to look for or asking questions about construction or, hey, I've seen this before. Uh, and they've done a lot of that research on the front end, which is why I think it's really important to have a solid website where the customers can go explore and you have a lot of answers for them that entices them to want to come into the store and actually view that product and talk to somebody else with more questions. We're big proponents of having all of the prices for our houses listed online, and it's none of these. Hey, it's the price of the house, and then when you get in here, oh, by the way, that doesn't include the delivery and AC and this and that, and they try to tack on all of this money. No, it's hey, this is what the house is going to cost. This is what that price includes, and people, you build that relationship and that trust with that customer before they ever step into your office. And that's where huge for us is having that honesty and transparency up front with all of our customers.
Well, it seems like the industry is starting to put a lot more importance on it. I'll never forget, I went to the Louisville event. This was my first big manufactured home event back in 2020. And I sat in on a marketing meeting, because marketing is critically important in the mortgage industry and the housing industry. And I sat in a marketing meeting for retailers and dealers. And I was astonished at how little marketing was being done or how to effectively do it. And there were questions like, well, how many megapixel camera do I need to use? And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And even now, a lot of the retailers and dealers across the country don't have great websites. I love yours. I mean, it doesn't hurt that you have a Longhorn on there as well, but it's a good site, and I love that you guys focus on reviews. You guys got a lot of really good reviews out there, which is great. Um, how important is that, and why is that not an industry-wide thing? Because
I
if we're
think,
talking about, we talk about having representatives and getting the word out, you can have these conversations when people walk in the door, but how do you reach them before they even walk in the door? And again, why isn't there more importance on it, even here in 2025?
I think a lot of the mentality from some of the retailers that have been around for a while is if I give away all of the information online, then there's no need for them to call me. There's no need for them to come into the store.
Kind of
And
like car dealers don't put the price out there when you actually, when you
exactly,
try to get the price, it says, call me. Oh, that drives me
exactly.
nuts. I will go to
Yes,
a different car website
me
if that
too.
happens.
Me too. And I think that's really their mentality is if I give
Interesting.
you all the
Okay.
information, you have no need to reach out to me. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because maybe my product doesn't fit your needs. Maybe my price point doesn't fit where you need to be at. And I'd rather you figure that out before you called us.
Yeah. I'm gonna get all hokey pokey, so to speak, right? With
Uh-oh.
my talk here, right? Of what I'm about to say. It comes down to the lack of having a abundance mentality. You see, if somebody like Rafael realizes, man, I may not be for everybody, but there's enough buyers out there that will buy from us
Yeah.
that understand who we are, what we are, and can appreciate what we have. In other words, Cowtown Home Center is not everybody is Cowtown Home Center's customer,
Exactly.
you know? And he understands that. So he understands that there's more than enough people out there that will buy from him.
It's powerful.
He's not afraid to put that information out there, have it out there, be fully transparent. Whereas a lot of the previous generations and older people that have been, the people that I talk to every once in a while, they're like, well, this is how we've been doing it for years. And why would I
Mhm.
even want to do all these things? And I'm like,
This is the way
because
we've
of
always
that.
done it, so why should we change? Trick. Yep.
Because of that, so
Yeah.
it starts up here, I think, from when I'm here, what I feel, and Raphael's comments just go to prove that, right? It starts with how you think. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. It's how you view your industry and the customers that are out there. Wholeheartedly believe there's customers out there that aren't Cowtown customers because we
Yeah.
can't provide what they want or what they need. And we'll shake hands. I'm really good friends with the dealer next door. We go play golf. And if somebody doesn't fit what we have, hey, go see my buddy down the street. He definitely has what you're looking for and he'll
Yeah.
help you out.
And
I think it's
Raphael,
a powerful place to be when you don't have to fight tooth and nail. Look, I mean, it's important to be aggressive, but if you can get to the point where you go, you know what, I may not be the right fit. I'm not going to give away my product for free. I need to have a certain margin percentage, that sort of thing. That's really powerful when you can get to the point where you can just say no, because you're confident that there is enough business out there, which we know there is. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a good point. Caesar?
now let me ask you a question, Raphael, okay? Because I'm gonna go off of my own personal experience, and I want to see how it works at Cowtown.
All
Okay.
right.
So we always had meetings, sales meetings, right? And the last 8 years I was with a corporate retailer, that at Titan. And so we
Mhm.
would get together, all the GMs, and we'd have talks of how do we increase our business. but it always seemed like the conversations were always about how can we take business from so and so next door? How can we take business from Clayton over here? How can we get theirs? As opposed to how can we get these other folks that haven't considered manufactured homes that we
Right.
know can't buy the site built, but they can buy our stuff. Are you guys having those conversations? Like, are you leveling up your team to think bigger and beyond that? Or because what I call it is like we cannibalize ourselves as an industry. We're always fighting amongst each other when there's a big old market out there that we're not tapping into yet.
Yeah, definitely. We're always trying to figure out different ways of people who are not in our industry yet, who haven't considered our stuff. How can we reach those customers who are thinking about making a move from their starter home to their second home? Hey,
Mhm.
we got married, we live in an apartment, we're looking for a home to build our family with. How can we target those customers to at least consider coming to look just at our website and see what we have to offer? And then that progresses to, maybe a store visit, but always trying to think of creative ways on how we can reach those customers.
So the last question I have really, I guess, is kind of, continuing that line of thinking. So, you talk about how do we reach them? So you talk about realtors, and that's a conversation we're gonna, we're having a realtor join us shortly for the other side. So that's important. Obviously, you and I, all of us can spread the word. How do we reach that audience? I mean, you talked about the importance of a website. So I guess my question would be, twofold. Number one, how important or how much of your business comes from your website? And how else do you do it? I mean, obviously word of mouth's great, but what
Mhm.
does that look like?
I'd say 90% of the business that we get is through some form of web presence.
Okay.
That
Okay.
that be, Google,
Interesting. Okay.
Facebook, social media, whatever. That's where the
Yeah.
majority of people are going to find out about Cowtown is through our different marketing efforts and us consistently being
Yeah.
on. I'm a big proponent of building our brand and
Yep.
building the message that we want to convey, and staying on people's top of mind. We try to do any events to stay in front of people's mind when they think of manufactured housing in the DFW Metroplex. I want them to think about Cowtown. And we work
Well,
really
you
hard.
do. You obviously can tell just by and had I known you were going to be a guest, I would have looked before the call instead of during the call. But I'll
Why you
blame
keep
Cesar
throwing me
for
under the
that.
bus, man?
But that's just what we do, my friend. But I mean, I'm looking at it as we're talking, and
Uh-huh.
so if my eyes are wandering, I'm looking
Yeah.
at your site, and it's all over. I mean, from your holy cow pricing to, I mean, your logo, you've got all that stuff all over. Branding is really, really important, and maybe that's something we need to dig into more in the future, Cesar, is or maybe you do this in your class, I don't know, but I think branding is critical, and I'd love to see more of the industry spend time on that. You guys have done a really, really good job of that. And I guess, at first I say interesting, but I guess it runs fairly concurrent with the site built side. Most buyers search for their house digitally. I mean, they can find you can go directly to builders and retailers' websites. There's aggregate websites like Builder Boots and all that that'll aggregate the data for you. So you can find out, generally speaking, the community and the house and models and all that kind of stuff that you want digitally. Now, that doesn't mean that once they get there, that next phase is critically important. And that's why I love what Cesar does is they shop for it digitally, but then they actually want that real experience both from their sales consultant and their lender. That part is still critically important. But 90%, that's definitely something to think about. I mean, so sorry, in your experience, and I know I said that was my last question, but I'm going to ask one more anyway. Um, how much of the industry is putting the same importance on their branding and their digital footprint?
Well, it's definitely increasing. Look, I mean, more
Oh,
people are
that's
aware,
the
and
political
here's the reason
correct
why.
answer.
Here's the reason why, because you have more people like Rafael coming into the industry to take over, whether it's take over retail location or starting their own. And what I mean by people like Rafael, I'm talking younger
Hmm.
new owners coming
Which is
into it,
really
right?
encouraging to see.
Rafael has the benefit of he had the experience from the factory side, but we've got a lot
Yeah.
of new people coming into it, new blood, so to speak. So they're bringing the open-mindedness of realizing that we
Yeah.
live in a
Good point.
digital area,
Hmm.
in a
Yep.
digital world now. And so they're open to it and they're doing it. They understand that branding is what leads to business. We used to be like he said, right? It used to be put a house out there, put it's 50 grand off, and there we go, right? And that's what people are driving in for. And I tell everybody now in our classes, like, man, that is not what people are responding to nowadays.
Oh, love that you say that. Yeah.
They want to be educated. They want to know why your product is better. They want to know
Mhm.
why your company is better. How? Not the home, right? The home is secondary, so to speak, even though that's what they're going to live in. You're building trust before they even walk in
Yeah.
the door. And we're going to get into this, like I get into this in every training class. Rafael's attending our event that we're doing this week, and we're going to talk about it. We have to understand that there's what psychologically there's what's called the 6 steps of transformation that every buyer goes through, no matter what you're buying, whether it's a phone or a car or a house. And by the time they reached out to Cowtown or they went on Cowtown's website or anybody else's website that's on here, they've already decided they want a house. They're just trying to figure out who do they feel more comfortable with based on the information that's on their website.
It's a good point. They're already in the market. You just got to
Yeah,
determine who's going to sell me my house and how quickly can I finance it and close. Yeah,
that's
it's a good
right.
point.
Yeah,
It's a
they're
good
already
point.
sold. So we as consultants don't, we as salespeople, you're not really a salesperson anymore. You have to be a consultant now. And that's where I talk about buying experience. What is it like when they step out of their car and into your retail location? What is it like? What does the sales center look like? What do the sales consultants look like? How are they looking? How do they speak? How do they educate folks? That's where we have to go to as an industry. And my thought because
Yeah.
we're still
Yep.
overcoming some of the stigma, but it's far less than it used to be, right? And those people are kind of aging themselves out of the market. And so we have a huge potential, but the buying experience, what are your thoughts on buying experience, Rafael?
I think it's really starts online, right? That's part of the buying experience is what does your web presence look like? What makes them feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone and call you to ask more questions? Because that's your other storefront is what your web presence looks like. And then that experience kind of builds upon itself because if that web presence continues on to your actual location and the way you carry yourself and the way your salespeople carry themselves, what the inside of your store looks like, how your houses look,
Yes.
are they clean? Is your lawn mowed? Do you have a clean driveway to come into? Man, all of that plays a part into it because that's just building that trust with that customer to do business with you.
That's right. And it makes it more familiar to what they're used to, right? The buyer
Yeah.
that hasn't bought a manufactured home, they're used to going to a subdivision. They see
Oh,
some
yeah.
model homes out there. It looks nice. It looks clean. Like you said earlier, they're meeting somebody who talks completely different than what we used to talk in
Yeah.
even 10 years ago. And so we got to match that familiarity to make them feel comfortable and trust it. So I completely agree and so just one last question for you, Rafael. Where do you see the industry going over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we're definitely going to start picking away at that standard 10% of new home build sales, especially in Texas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
heard this past year in Texas, they passed a new law that's going to require most cities to have some type of zoning for manufactured housing.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
that's something that's really held our industry back is where you can put a house. You're typically putting something out in the rural areas, right out in the country. Well, most of the people who are buying new houses are working families and they got to be close to the city to commute. Having something that's zoned inside of a major city is going to be huge for our industry and where we're allowed to place homes. especially because the abundance of lots inside cities are going to be more marketable, and they're going to be more affordable and more attainable for those customers. So I see nothing but great things happening for our industry here in the near future.
Awesome.
Well, you've obviously done a good job. I'm just looking through your reviews and it really echoes a lot of the same themes. I mean, no pressure. If you just look at the first couple, wonderful experience, no pressure sales, amazing experience, so great, patient. The next one, very, very similar, amazing, knowledgeable, helpful, extremely patient. I mean, over and over and over again. I think that ties back to one of the first things that impressed me about César is experience, 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 and I celebrate you for being an advocate, leading the charge on that kind of stuff, and certainly educating guys like me, who really are trying to learn the manufactured home space, and the psychology behind it. So great job, my friend, and appreciate you hanging out with us a little bit today.
Definitely. It was fun. Something for you guys to ask your next realtor guest that you guys have
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Something that
please.
I'm a fit about is when you go buy a house from a site builder, right? DR Horton or whoever, uh, they have a list of model homes that you can buy in that neighborhood. And then you look at all the models and they're all renderings. Why won't the MLS allow us to list our houses and our models at our sales center so we have better exposure to those customers that are considering buying a new house and they click, hey, over here at this address, this retailer offers these models, and allow us to be in front of more customers that we're not reaching yet.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. I imagine it's, because it doesn't have the property yet, but I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. So I put it down and we will make sure we ask it. So we'll try to
Thank
make
you
it
so
a
much
little,
for having me, guys.
we'll make, what's that?
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of
Yeah,
fun. Appreciate
likewise,
it.
Raphael.
Hey, Rafael, how can people reach out to you guys at Cowtown Home Center?
Yeah, check us out online, cowtownhomecenter.com. Looks up on Facebook, Cowtown Home Center, or come check us out in Fort Worth.
Yeah, so anybody that's
Excellent.
looking, whether you're in the DFW area or you're planning on moving to the great state of Texas, right?
Yeah, we
Reach out
got
to
you.
Cowtown Home Center and they'll definitely hook you guys up. Rafael, I
Excellent.
appreciate you being with us, man. It's always great talking to you, and I'll see you in a couple of days over at
Sounds
our
good.
MH Sales Mastery Live, man. I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna be fun. And Texas Walker Ranger down there below. No, I'm kidding. I give Brian a hard time. I say he looks
I
like Chuck Norris.
I had a lady ask me if that's who I was coming back from MHI, the annual event in San Diego, and I said, "Please tell me you think I look like young Chuck Norris, not old one." I mean, Tay calls me that all the time. You call me all the time. So as long as I'm the younger one, and not that I don't love Chuck at any age, but
Yeah,
anyway, always good to be on these conversations, my friend, and let's keep it going.
awesome.
Sounds good. Lots
Well,
of fun.
thanks. Thanks for being here, Rafael. Thanks to everybody for watching. Share the episode, share the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's all work together to break the stigma and take manufactured housing to another level. Everybody have a
All right,
great day.
gentlemen,
Talk
have a
later.
blessed day. Bye bye.